lot of folks I speak with are curious if they need to start as an SDR in tech sales. And this is both people with sales experience that's not related to SaaS or tech sales, and also engineers and STEM backgrounds that may have relevant technical backgrounds looking into the sales side of tech for the first time. So let's break this down from the side that you have sales experience that is maybe in an unrelated industry like cars, like real estate, whatever it may be, and you're looking to break into tech and SaaS sales. One, I would say right now, the market is so hot in tech and SaaS sales. While people perceive SDR as a potential step down from a pay standpoint, your total compensation is anywhere from 70 to maybe 95K a year right out of the gate. So again, maybe that is a step back for you. Maybe that is or is not worth it, but I will tell you on the long-term compensation standpoint, if you're willing to start as an SDR and do well, the compensation potential gets to $300,000 and more at the high end of tech and SaaS sales. Again, one, depending on where you're at, 70 to 95K a year may not be a step back. And two, while you may have experience making a ton of calls, making a ton of outbound emails, etc., if you don't have direct experience selling B2B with highly technical products, it presents a unique challenge, and it is worthwhile to be an SDR because of the fact that you have to learn the product from a technical perspective and a business perspective. This is going to require you to not only talk confidently and ask the right questions and have meaningful conversations with the business stakeholders, but in many cases, especially the more technical you go, while the jobs can be lucrative, you have to be able to be a product expert in the sense that you know everything about it, you know the major value propositions, and ideally when you get very good, you're able, even though you don't necessarily have to write software and write code and all these different things, you know the product well enough that you can ask meaningful questions to prospects and help them understand not only where their current situation is lacking, but where your product can then come in and fill a need that they either know they have or maybe even don't know they have. Now, this is kind of getting meta, so I don't want to get too far away from the main point, but if you have past sales experience and you're looking into tech and SaaS sales, one, if companies are pushing you to go to an SDR route, it's not necessarily a bad thing. The compensation potential is potentially even on par with what you're already making, and the long-term potential is substantial, particularly if you commit yourself to the craft and get very good and can get up into mid-market enterprise closing roles, etc. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that even if you were to get an account executive position with that past sales experience, I'm not saying it's a bad situation, but you might want to be careful because in some cases, if there's startups that are willing to give account executive roles to people who don't have much experience, it could be a red flag and that they really need people to work at that company and they may not be able to find other account executives that they can bring in from other companies. Again, I'm not saying it's always bad and I'm not saying you couldn't be successful in that situation, but oftentimes if you're getting really quickly pushed through the interview process, getting an offer really fast, those can be signs that maybe they're just looking for anyone and everyone. And the reality is once you actually get in that job, you're not going to be very well set up to succeed in that role, hit or over exceed your number. The flip side though, is that many companies, many tech companies now, because it's grown so big, are looking for people with the aptitude to become technical sellers, and their SDR programs have very renowned training programs and take people from all backgrounds, making them into great technical sellers. So if you're looking into tech sales, kind of debating if you want to go an SDR route, I might encourage you to look at companies, again, as an example, there's many here that apply, like an Oracle, like MongoDB, like Salesforce, like companies with renowned tech sales training programs that have long established histories of building out great sales teams. Now, the flip side, and even in my own career, I came from an engineering background and I moved into highly technical sales. I have done very well because I've kind of found this niche where I'm able to have a bit of technical aptitude, even though I'm not writing software on a daily basis, I'm not highly technical anymore, but I've been able to leverage that background and the thought process behind it, the frameworks that engineers use, and apply that to sales. But that being said, I did start out as an SDR, and I'm not sure that it would have succeeded had I not been an SDR in the first place. And a lot of this is because while yes, you can talk the product, yes, you can engage maybe in a way that some reps can't, having that technical background and strictly talking tech is not enough to drive a deal from end to end, particularly as you go up in size with the companies that you're selling to. So my technical background definitely helped. I'm definitely able to sound intelligent when I get random technical folks on the phone or giving a technical presentation. But that being said, that can only go so far, and it had to be instilled in me that I needed to have a lot of activity like cold calling, like outbounding emails, etc. to be successful. I don't do as much of that today as I used to. Without that, without the knowledge of kind of the repetition that it takes to get very good, the way you engage prospects on a short time frame, catch their attention, etc., it's very difficult to get if you're in an account executive role right out of the gate. And like I mentioned, compensation is not a huge problem, at least especially if you're early on in your career. Where I was an engineer, I was making just under $80,000 a year. My first SDR job, I was getting paid $75,000 a year. And in 2 years, I've almost quadrupled my income because, again, I was willing to start at the bottom as an SDR, and I quickly found success because I was able to commit myself to learning the sales side of things while having that solid technical foundation I could rely on to communicate to a variety of stakeholders across the entire buying process, from the individual technical developer all the way to the business manager, CEO, decision maker that's going to ultimately sign a $100,000 plus contract. Now, in conclusion, again, there's no right answer here, but I will tell you, with the companies that we've worked with and also the candidates, 95+% of you, especially if you're relatively earlier in your career, you're in your 20s, etc., you're likely going to be pushed to that SDR position. And it's not a bad thing. The compensation is relatively on par with many other careers. And also the long-term upside is substantial. I have almost quadrupled my income in just under 2 years. And while there's many factors that go into that, a lot of it is because I was willing to start from the bottom. I was willing to learn sales. I committed myself not only to my job, but also reading books, podcasts, etc. that were relevant to my specific position. And again, a lot of luck was involved. I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at, and I don't take it for granted. But I will tell you, if you're caught up in, I don't want to be an SDR, I deserve to be an account executive, I would really ask yourself, if it's just 12 to 18 months, is it really that bad for the long-term upside, for the potential long-term to make $300,000+ a year? And if that's a deal breaker for you, then maybe tech sales isn't the right path. And fair answer. But yeah, hopefully that gave you some perspective on why it might be valuable to start as an SDR. And for a select few of you, if you have questions about what it might take to get an account executive role right out of the gate, feel free to ask below. Happy to continue the conversation there.